Thomas has always wanted to become an actor. His parents have been very supportive and have even paid for him to attend acting classes. However, even though Thomas has tried out for every school play since the 2nd grade, he has never gotten a part. One day, he finally gets a part in the school play. He is elated. He rushes home from school and yells to his father, "I got a part! I got a part!" His father says, "That's great, son. I'm very proud of you. Who do you play?" Thomas replies enthusiastically, "I play a man who's been married for 30 years with 4 children." In an encouraging tone, his father says, "Well, that's a great start, son. Maybe next time you'll get a speaking part." An old man lives alone on a farm in Idaho. He wants to spade his potato garden, but he's getting older, and it has become very difficult for him. His only son, Bubba, who used to help him, was in prison. So the old man wrote a letter to his son and described his predicament.
"Dear Bubba, I'm feeling pretty bad because it looks like I won't be able to plant my potato garden this year. I'm just getting too old to be digging up a garden plot. If you were here, all my troubles would be over. I know you would dig the lot for me."
A few days later, he received a letter from his son.
Dear Dad, for heaven's sake, don't dig up that garden. That's where I buried the bodies.
At 4 o'clock the next morning, FBI agents and local police showed up at the old man's farm and dug up the entire area without finding any bodies. They apologized to the old man and left. That same day, the old man received another letter from his son.
Dear Dad, you can go ahead and plant the potatoes now.
A U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration officer makes an unexpected visit to a ranch in the Florida Panhandle. He gets out of the black, unmarked SUV he's driving and barks at the rancher.
"I need to inspect your ranch for illegal drugs."
The rancher, knowing he has nothing to hide, says,
"Okay, but don't go in that field over there,"
as he pointed out the location. The DEA officer verbally explodes, saying,
"Mister, I have the authority of the federal government with me."
Reaching into his rear pants pocket, he removes his badge and proudly displays it to the rancher.
"See this badge? This badge means I'm allowed to go wherever I want, on any land, no questions asked. Have I made myself clear?"
The rancher nods and then just shakes his head as he walks away with a smirk on his face. A short time later, the old rancher hears loud screams and sees the DEA officer running for his life, chased by the rancher's prize bull. With every step, the bull is gaining ground on the officer, and it seems likely that he'll get gored before he reaches safety. The officer is clearly terrified. The rancher throws down his tools, runs to the fence, and yells at the top of his lungs, "Your badge! Show him your badge!" A burglar breaks into a home and holds the husband and wife hostage. At gunpoint, he forces the two to sit in chairs facing back to back, then ties them to the chairs. The burglar slowly and methodically begins stealing from the house. When the burglar has taken everything of value, he gets ready to leave. The homeowners are still bound to their chairs, when suddenly, the man yells at the burglar, "Please untie her! Please let her go!" The thief responds with,
"No, I'm not untying either of you so that the authorities get notified as late as possible. Don't worry, your neighbors will soon wonder why your lights are still on throughout the night, and check in on you long before you succumb to dehydration."
The man yet again pleads, "Please, just untie her. I'll do anything." The burglar once again explains his reasoning.
"I needs to get away with this crime. I'm sorry, I can't leave anything up to chance."
The man shuffles his chair towards the burglar and, in a state of mania, exclaims, "I'm begging you, man, just let her go. She won't call the cops, I promise." The burglar, still unwilling to budge, did find it quite touching how much his hostage cared about his wife.
"Well,"
he said,
You must really love your wife to beg me to untie you so desperately.
No, the man replied in a state of frenzy. My wife will be home in 15 minutes. 3 spies are captured by a terrorist group, a Frenchman, a German, and an Italian. The captors first take the French spy in for interrogation. They tie his hands behind a chair and torture him for 2 hours before he spills the beans. The captors throw him back into the cell and drag the German out for his interrogation. As before, they tie his hands behind the chair and begin torturing him. The German resists for 4 hours before finally giving in. The captors throw him back into the cell and then drag the Italian out. They tie his hands behind the chair and begin torturing him. 4 hours pass, then 8, then 16. Even 24 hours later, the interrogators have not been able to get a word out of the Italian. Frustrated, they throw him back into the cell. Impressed by the Italian's resistance, the other 2 spies ask him,
How did you manage to keep quiet for so long?
The Italian responds, Oh, I wanted to talk, but I just couldn't move my hands. In an old part of town, there's an establishment often visited by a certain kind of people. In addition to numerous items on display, the purpose of which is unusual but well known to those who frequent the place, there are several small booths arranged in pairs, each pair sharing a common wall. There is a hole in this common wall about the size of one's fist. On one occasion, a young attractive woman enters the building. She looks around nervously, hoping that she won't be seen by anyone she knows, and slips into one of the booths. In the adjacent booth, on the other side of the wall, an old man is waiting, seated. The young woman closes the door to the booth and seems somewhat apprehensive. She whispers near the hole in the wall separating the booths,
I'm sorry, Daddy. I've been a very naughty girl.
The old man on the other side, who has quite a bit of experience with such encounters, takes a deep breath and exhales with some emotion. Anticipating a long and interesting encounter, he whispers back,
You've definitely got the right idea. But it's forgive me, Father, for I have sinned.
3 bulls heard the rancher was bringing in another bull onto the ranch. The first bull says,
I've been here 5 years. I'm not giving this new bull any of my 100 cows.
The second bull added,
I've been here 3 years and I've earned my right to 50 cows. I'm keeping all my cows.
The third bull replied, I've only been here a year, and so far, you guys have only let me have 10 cows. I may not be as big as you fellows, but I'm keeping all 10 of my cows. Just then, an 18-wheeler pulls up in the pasture carrying the biggest bull they've ever seen. At 4,700 pounds, each step he takes strains the steel ramp. The first bull says,
I think I could spare a few cows for our new friend.
The second bull says,
I actually have too many cows to take care of. I can spare a few.
They look over at the third bull and find him pawing the dirt, shaking his horns and snorting. The third bull looks up and says, Hell, he can have all my cows. I'm just making sure he knows I'm a bull. A priest, a rabbi, and an atheist are fishing on a lake. The priest says,
Oh heavens, I forgot my lures back on land.
He steps out of the boat and walks across the water back to the land. He then grabs his lures and walks back to the boat. The atheist is astounded, but before he can make sense of the situation, the rabbi says,
Oh Yahweh, help me, I forgot my bait.
He also steps out of the boat and walks across the water back to the land. He grabs his bait and walks back to the boat. Again, the atheist is stunned, but he refuses to believe in divinity of any sort or its impact on the world. He stands up in the boat and says, I left my extra line on land. The atheist hops out of the boat and splash! He sinks right to the bottom of the lake. After a moment, the priest looks over at the rabbi and says,
Come to think of it, we probably should have told him where the rocks are.